Welcome to episode 88 of The Lowdown Show. I'm Neil Graham. Ex-Confederate motorcycle designer JT Nesbitt, whose current project is reimagining the American motorcycle with his audacious Magnolia 4, stepped into the fray recently and wrote an open letter to New York Times bestselling author Scott Galloway. Galloway's book, titled On Being a Man, discusses the so-called masculinity crisis affecting young males, the very same young males that not so many generations ago were drawn to motorcycling. Nesbitt, who's this week's guest, by the way, took exception to some of Galloway's language and suggested a cure that would allow disaffected young men to get their mojo back. And wouldn't you know, it involved a motorcycle. But first, a few words from those who make the Lowdown possible. The Lowdown Show is presented by adbrider.com and supported by ebaymotors.com. eBay has reinvented vehicle buying. From click to curb, everything's covered. With their new secure purchase, eBay isn't just where you find your car, it's where you buy it, start to finish. Title, financing, registration, delivery. It's all built in. And eligible vehicle purchases are backed by up to $100,000 in protection. This is what modern car buying looks like. Get your next ride on eBay. eBay, things people love. Secure purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary. All right, JT, before we get into this, I'm going to give people a primer on Scott Galloway, American author, and his book that you responded to. Now, his book is called Notes on Being a Man. And here's a little thumbnail sketch. He advises readers to, quote, address the masculinity crisis, build mental strength, and raise good sons. Now, the definition that he talks about is, or some of the things that have happened, rather, are male unemployment, addiction, loneliness, failure to complete college. Apparently, very soon in America, 2 women will graduate for every single man from college. Suicide rates are spiking, etc. And it's kind of, some of his stuff is kind of old-fashioned. He wants men to, quote, provide, protect, and procreate. And he also tells his sons that when you go out for a date with a woman, that you should pay for everything because a woman is, quote, not going to have sex with a man who splits the bill with her, which I find interesting because I've been laid lots of times after splitting the bill. So your results may vary. So he always returns to this notion of lack of economic viability for young men, that if you don't have money, you don't find a partner. And as a man, you come off the rails. And then next thing you know, you're into porn, gambling, and it exacerbated, of course, by social media and its easy dopamine hits. This is all Scott Galloway's thesis, the American author. And Galloway believes that that what's happening is there is a new breed of American asexual, asocial males. And in terms of the fixes for this, and this is what we're going to talk about today, one of the things that Galloway talks about is the need to crime more often. But there was something that Galloway wrote, JT, that really resonated with you, that you really took exception to. And what did he say?
I've kind of been following this guy's journey, and I think that a lot of what he says is accurate. And I think he's real good at analyzing the problems. But I don't see him providing a whole lot of solutions. Now, you and me are just motorcycle guys, so we live in the world that we know. And he made a statement, and that statement was young men should drink too much and make a series of bad decisions. And when I heard him say that, he said that on national TV several times as part of his repertoire. Every time I hear him say it, I'm jumping out of my chair, desperate to add to that conversation. Because as motorcycle guys, we know the benefits to mental health that our passion and activity provide.
But what do you think what is it about that he recommends, drinking too much? What are the risks to that, do you think?
He's missing the point. And the point is that I believe that men need to have a relationship with danger and adventure. And it's risk versus reward. But there's and the way that we express that is that you and I ride motorcycles. Now, the problem is that on this podcast, to access this podcast, you have to already be a motorcycle guy. So with my open letter that I wrote to him, what I'm trying to get him to do is just say, hey, how about buy a motorcycle, fix it up, and ride it cross country? That would be a solution. That's better than drinking too much. I mean, maybe it is a bad decision, but at least it's a decision that could lead to better mental health.
JT, you've been doing this interesting experiment for 25 years. So before we get into really what you propose, and you sort of touched on it briefly there, but this is not just a thing you've been sort of, this didn't come up last week. This is something you've been thinking about for a while. What have you been doing for 25 years in your hometown of New Orleans?
New Orleans is a great cross section because we have tourists, rich people, poor people, young people, old people, all different race, creeds, and religions. And the French Quarter is sort of a nexus where you can find pretty much the broadest spectrum of Americans and people, tourists, locals and tourists. So for the past 25 years, I've been riding a motorcycle down to Molly's at the Market, which is a great intersection. It's Decatur Street and Ursuline, and park a bike in front of Molly's, have a drink, and just see what happens. Just step back. And for the past 10 years.
What happened at the beginning? So let's go back 25 years. What would happen then?
25 years ago, people would be very interested. At least they would, because I was working for Confederate at the time, so we were test riding bikes. And I always have a stable of interesting motorcycles. I mean, I've never had fewer than 3 cool, interesting vintage or modern motorcycles. And everything from Vincent to Bimota. And so for this entire 25-year period, I park a bike, step back, and just watch people's reaction. And 20 years ago, people were still pretty interested. 10 years ago, and this is, all just observational.
Yes, of course.
It's anecdotal.
Yes.
I don't have data. This is just my sense of it. In the past 10 years, the interest has fallen off a cliff. People walk right by a Vincent shadow. They don't even give it a second look.
Now, this is everybody, men, women, young, old? Is this everyone?
It's a huge cross section.
Right.
It's the best cross section you can have because there are a lot of high-end people who come here. There are a lot of desperately poor people here. Tourists, locals, like I said, a great cross section of the general public. And I can tell you, people don't even see them anymore. They don't even see the motorcycle. It's like it's invisible. In the past 5 years, the bike has not, I mean, it's bizarre to me. If I had brought, some incredible work of art and posted it up there, they wouldn't see it, I guess, either. But so yeah, there it is, man. People aren't looking. They aren't even looking at motorcycles. I think they're not even seeing the real world anymore. They're more worried about what other people are thinking rather than what they're doing, and certainly not interested in what they're riding.
eBay has reinvented vehicle buying. From click to curb, everything's covered. It's all thanks to their new secure purchase. Ever try to buy a car and end up in a parking lot with a stranger in some blind trust? Or spend half the day at a dealership talking to pushy salespeople and signing paperwork? Or maybe, worst of all, waiting for hours at the DMV just to transfer the title? Well, that era is over. For years, eBay has been the go-to for gearheads, collectors, and do-it-yourselfers because whatever you're into, from classics to SUVs to trucks to imports, eBay's got it. And now with secure purchase, eBay isn't just where you find your next ride, it's where you can buy it, start to finish. Sellers and titles are verified, paperwork is handled by experts, and payments are traceable and digital. So you know exactly who you're dealing with and exactly what you're getting. Plus, you can finance, insure, and register your vehicle all in one place. No more hours at the dealership, no more trips to the DMV. Get your vehicle plates and paperwork shipped to your door, ready to drive. And it's all part of one seamless process, designed to feel as easy as buying anything else online. And eligible vehicles purchased on eBay are backed by up to $100,000 in purchase protection. Thinking about selling your ride? Secure Purchase makes that simple too, because you know your buyer and their funds are verified. If you still own your car, the financing payoff is fully integrated. So you're not chasing paperwork or waiting on checks to clear. And with Secure Purchase, you get paid fast. And you're not going to be stuck chasing no-shows or answering the fifth, "Is it still available?" message. This is what modern car buying looks like. Skip the DMV, skip the sketchy meetups, buy it on eBay. eBay, things people love. Secure Purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary. The Lowdown Show is presented by advrider.com and supported by ebaymotors.com. When you were a young man, you're saying 22, 23 years old, you saw a movie. Now tell me what that movie was and what that did for you.
Easy Rider altered the trajectory of my life. When I saw Easy Rider, I was already interested in motorcycles and was riding around crazy, goofy Moto Guzzi bikes that I had put together in sculpture class. But when I saw Easy Rider, it said, okay, here's how you perform your art. You hit the road.
So you viewed it as cosplay even back then.
No, I wouldn't call it cosplay. I'd say it's a, once you build the thing, what do you do with it?
So what did you build and what did you do?
I built a crazy Moto Guzzi chopper.
And
That's all I could afford.
And where'd you go with it?
I rode from Louisiana all the way up to, the furthest away I got was Vancouver. I rode around in BC quite a bit and then headed home and had all kinds of trouble on the road. Look, man, when the happiest I've ever been in my life was somewhere in rural Wyoming. And I got into a hailstorm and it was golf ball size hail. It was legit dangerous. And I pulled off on the side of the road and found an abandoned barn and slept in an abandoned barn somewhere in Wyoming. And I remember looking at my bike and then the rainstorm and hailstorm outside, snuggling under a blanket. And I was like, man, this is it. I've never felt more alive than that.
So what happened after that? How do you think that journey changed you? What were you before and what were you after?
A journey like that forces you to talk to people who you might not otherwise meet. And that's sort of the point of my letter to Scott, is that getting out there and being on the receiving end of compassion and kindness is the way to learn how to be a compassionate and kind person, man. And when you're on the road on a questionable vintage motorcycle, you're at the mercy of everyone.
Well, it's true. And I think that sometimes the thing about traveling on a bike, and I have had some wonderful experiences, and almost all of the most memorable experiences in life, when you think about it, usually start off poorly. I mean, I remember bending a transmission main shaft on my Norton somewhere in upstate New York, and it led to this bizarre thing where the bike broke down and it happened to be in front of a guy's shop. It was like perfect. And, I was ushered into his shop and I was going to New York because I was going to Peru with this girlfriend of mine. And so he drove me to the bus station. I left the bike there, managed to order up a transmission main shaft by calling a place because you had to phone places in those days. And then the main shaft was there when I returned from 3 weeks of hiking in Peru. And then the two of us put it together and I rode home.
Did that guy show you what it meant to be a man?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just, I think what was amazing about that was just how, um, because I needed help. We always have this thing, I think, where it's like, oh no, I don't want to impose, and it's like I was screwed. I mean, I had to make it to New York. I had to catch an overnight bus. I got there, and within an hour of arriving in New York, we were off to Newark to catch a plane. So there was no time. I didn't have time to be this demure Canadian who, I'm not going to ask for help. I'll just do it by myself. I needed help. And of course, as soon as you reach out to people and they know you need help, well, they give it to you. It's this beautiful exchange. I needed him, and he got as much out of it, I'm convinced, as I did. It was a beautiful exchange. And that wasn't the only one. And it almost always comes from something going wrong, doesn't it? I mean, I think that's the key.
If you're on the road on a vintage motorcycle, it's going to go wrong. That's the point.
And then there's this thing that happens when things go to hell, we realize we're so much more resourceful than we think we are.
And we're so much more alike than we think we are.
Yeah.
We're so much more kind and generous and giving than we think we are. We are in a place right now where our nation is so divided politically, and our political parties have figured out a way to drive a wedge between people. And what it does is it isolates both the young man and the old. I see it all the time. The MAGA movement has isolated old people and made them afraid of young people, and vice versa. But and there's no opportunities to have that direct one-on-one personal connection. And that's what a motorcycle trip does, a solo motorcycle trip. Not with a group of friends. You have to do it alone.
Now, you've sort of extrapolated this notion of a solo motorcycle trip into something much broader in the open line. I don't know if I stated this, but this was an open letter to Scott Galloway. Did he respond?
No.
Well.
No.
Well, we'll have to have a conversation with him when we get a hold of him.
Well, look, the problem and the reason why I wrote the letter to Scott Galloway is that you and I are preaching to the choir on this podcast. We already are talking to the people who have motorcycle on the brain. All Scott Galloway, all I was trying to get him to do is just say the phrase, buy an old motorcycle on national television. When was the last time you heard anybody on national TV say the word motorcycle?
Okay, but hang on a second. I'm going to take exception to this. But it's not even. Don't you think this is much broader? I mean, yes, I think what you're saying for your thesis works beautifully, but it's so much broader than that. It could be anything. It could be a couple of guys. It could be guys fixing a car. It could be somebody restoring an old house. I mean, it's this notion of this intergenerational connection, isn't it? And how it benefits the young and the old, and that's really what you feel has been broken. Correct?
It's about mentorship.
Yeah, mentorship. That's
right?
And that could be anything. Even a knife, your beloved knives. Even a knife maker could work with a young man, for instance.
Absolutely, but I have to speak from the world that I know, and the world that I know has two wheels. So I'm just going to talk about what I'm sure about. I don't really know carpentry, right? It's not my thing, but I damn sure know a lot about motorcycles and how they can connect people in that way.
Well, tell me about hang on, I'm going to do this. Tell me about what you see at motorcycle shops, because it used to be motorcycle shops used to be this nexus, to use your word that you use downtown, but this nexus where young and old, and I had a motorcycle shop when I was a kid, Roy's Cycle World, because I would go in for parts for my Hodaka Combat Wombat. And Roy who wanted to sell me a new Yamaha. Of course, I didn't have any money, but he would roll his eyes, and then we'd go up into the attic of his old store, and we'd look for gears for my Hodaka. So he was kind of my first kind of bike shop mentor of sorts. And he was gruff, but he liked me, but he couldn't show it. So there's a beautiful sort of thing there, symbiotic relationship. But what are you seeing at motorcycle shops now, where young men used to go? What's happening now?
Well, what you're talking about is the crusty old curmudgeon with the heart of gold.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got one of those here, and I love the guy so much. Um, he
What's
does.
what's his shop like? Tell us what his shop is like.
I mean, it's looks like the traditional motorcycle shop. There's engine parts everywhere and stuff. And like lots of stuff to look at, texture, right?
Right.
He's all alone. He doesn't have young people coming in there saying, "Hey, can I sweep your floors for a new, for a set of tires? Can I do anything for you?" He just it just isn't happening. The kind of thing that you and I had, I think, is gone. Now, I could be wrong about that. Again, this is all anecdotal. This is just my observation. But young people, by and large, are not interested in motorcycles. I want to tell you a story. This is really good. A year ago, I encountered a young man who I said, "Are you interested in motorcycles?" And he said, "No, I'm not." And he said, went on to tell me the story about how his grandfather had died a year earlier, and he had inherited his grandfather's Sportster. And it's still parked in the same garage. He won't even pay any attention. He won't ride it. He won't fix it up. He won't do anything with it. He's not interested in it. Now imagine, like, my dream would it be to inherit a motorcycle from your crazy uncle. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't you love that? It would be a cherished member of the family. This kid, he's 26 years old, couldn't be bothered to even start it up because his perception of it is that it's so dangerous. It's too dangerous for him. He's worried about getting hurt.
I think something has happened in motorcycling. I have a daughter who's 20, and I would often ask her questions. She didn't really show much interest in motorcycles to become a motorcyclist, but of course she's been around them her whole life, and I've done this racket for a long time. And when I was that kid, and I mentioned a few minutes ago, there was a guy down the street with his Norton, and to me, that and the guys on choppers and Hondas and everything, two-stroke Kawasaki's, those were the guys that I kind of wanted to emulate because they were, I was 12, 13, they were 20 and 21. They had autonomy and I did not. I was under my mother's thumb, and they seemed this almost, special breed of human who could do things without their mother. And, but I'm not sure that young people these days, when they look at motorcycles, well, first of all, they see motorcyclists most of them are older. Many are older. And I'm not sure that motorcycling is the aspirational thing it was anymore. And I'm not sure that young people look at it. And I think this is maybe, this is perhaps a failure of our generation, is that somehow we made it seem kind of stodgy somehow. Do you have any views on that?
Yeah. I mean, dude, we've been so wrapped up in our choices for equipment that we've kind of forgot the whole point, right? Like because we're so deep down the rabbit hole, all we can see is the Bermudas and the Vincents and the high-end vintage Harleys and all the expensive stuff. But on some level, man, these are tools. These are tools that don't just transport the body. These tools have the magical power to transform a child into a man when they're used correctly.
Which leads us to what's on the lift behind you. So tell me what happens when you go on Facebook Marketplace in New Orleans and you Google Harley Davidson. What do you find?
It is incredible. What I find is the hangover from the late 90s motorcycle craze. A Sportster, Evo Sportster, can be had for $2,000, a nice one. So I decided because I advised Scott Galloway to tell young men and the people who are around them, for them to tell a young kid to go buy a vintage motorcycle and fix it up. So I've decided to run the experiment myself. I went on Facebook Marketplace and I found what I thought would be an average sort of purchase. Sitting on the lift behind me is a 1997 Harley Davidson Road King with 28,000 miles. Say hello to Big Red. That's her name.
What'd you pay for it?
I paid $4,500. And the reason why I paid a little bit more is because I wanted a big twin. Specifically, I wanted a Road King, and the bike had new tires on it. Now, I got on this bike and rode it around the block. Shifts fine, runs okay. The gas is full of trash. The tank is, full of rust and corrosion. So got to fix that. But riding motorcycle.
With new tires.
With new tires. Now, what does it mean, really, when I can go on Facebook Marketplace and for $4,500 buy a big twin, legit American touring motorcycle? What does that mean for Harley Davidson? I read all the comments when bad news comes out about Harley can't get sales and can't get young people involved. And everybody's always clacking away. Oh, what Harley needs to do is come out with a cheap bike for young people, for an inexpensive bike. Well, motherfucker, it already exists. It's called Facebook Marketplace. Are they going to build a bike for $2,000, which is what you can buy a nice Evo Sportster for? There's no way. Look, the reason why Facebook Marketplace has all these cheap Harleys is because the young people don't want them. Look, every Facebook ad, this one included, in the copy of the ad, health issues forces sale.
Right. So it's an older guy. So who is the owner of this bike? You obviously met the owner.
His name is Jerry. He's a super nice guy. He was an engineer. He bought this bike and when it was new, and he paid. Are you ready for this? In today's dollars, out the door it was 16,000, right? In today's dollars, that's $35,000. So that's what a new, kind of top of the line Harley touring bike costs, 35 grand.
Yeah.
So that tells me two things. That tells me that these guys who bought them can't ride them anymore, and their kids don't want to inherit them, and that Harley Davidson is not competing with Indian. Harley Davidson and Indian and Honda and Kawasaki and Yamaha, BMW, they're not competing with each other. They're competing with Facebook Marketplace.
I think you're totally right. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, truthfully, it should be this golden age for young motorcyclists, because there's this glut. And this is good stuff. This is not dodgy 70s stuff that's kind of shitty, from the end of the English Empire. This is not that kind of stuff. This is like solid. This is solidly built, well-engineered stuff.
These late 90s, Harleys in the 90s, that was when they were at their peak. And when I'm taking this bike apart and looking at it, I'm looking at Deutsche connectors. I'm looking at well-made, well-thought-out wiring harnesses, at super robust. I mean, these Evo big twin, man, that engine will do 100,000 miles, no problem. So what I've had to do so far is deconcho it, right? Because it had all the right. It's,
I hope that was the first thing you did, because that would have been the first thing I'd have done.
Yeah, so it's got all this, silly stuff. You've got the passenger pegs that weigh about 3 pounds apiece. You got the Harley Davidson little visors over the lights, and the live to ride little stick-on medallions all over the place, and these grips. It seems like they all have these goofy grips. You know what I mean? Like back in period, everybody had to have these. So outside of taking all this, decoration, bric-a-brac that this bike has been festooned with, once you get all that stuff off underneath it, it's fantastic. It's got a leak in the rocker box. It's got, uh, uh, of course, the carburetor needs to be redone. But on this specific project, what I'm doing is I'm keeping the costs at a bare minimum. Now, when I'd go and recommission a motorcycle, typically it's, oh, I'm not going to service the wheel bearings. I'm just going to replace them kind of attitude.
Right.
But not this one. This is going to be a shop bike. This is going to be a bike that's available to any young man who wants to come in here and go on a trip. Why not? I mean, what else I got to do?
So how do you, I love this idea. Now, of course, what it needs, as you just alluded to, it needs someone to take you up on this offer. So do you have any prospective young men who might be interested in riding this bike when it's ready to go?
Oh my God, Neil, I'm so lonely. Right? I'm one of those at-risk older men. Like I can see that in myself.
Do you feel that you, because you work mostly on your own, I'm thinking, is that fair to say?
Yeah, exclusively.
Exclusively on your own. And so you've got, like those of us who work on our own, you've got too much time in your own head probably. And you could probably use a young person around who could play music that you didn't understand, who had beliefs that baffled you. I mean that's what we need, isn't it? We need shit to slap us across the face.
Man, Facebook Marketplace is just out there. All those bikes are just waiting. And look, I know that you're more of a sport bike guy, right? But I'm going to make the case for the Harleys. For one thing, they don't make too much power. The second thing is they're fucking easy to get your mind around. Like you can, because they don't have, it's really about the carburetor, right? They're, what I'm talking about are carbureted bikes, not fuel injected bikes.
They're still carbureted, your 97?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's carbureted, which means you only have one carburetor to deal with. It's not a complex bank of carburetors that have to be, they all have to be rebuilt, but that complex bank of four, and if you make one mistake, the thing doesn't run right, and it's a huge hassle. The other thing that I want to posit is that it's way better to work on a machine that's been a victim of neglect rather than a victim of abuse. And that's what these Harleys really are, because they never went through that phase like a lot of Japanese bikes where they were really considered junk. And they were never wheelie. They were always kind of cherished things.
Yeah, always garaged, always owned by an older guy. Yeah.
An older guy who had no interest in abusing his machine. So that's why the Harleys are better. And the last point I'll make is that I believe that the young people are looking for two things. It's got to be cheap, and it has to be authentic. And I think the Facebook Marketplace, Harley Davidson, solves for both of those.
How do you think we get out of this situation? How do we, both? And I mean, this is a very broad thing, because not only is it sort of motorcycling's modern malaise, which is lack of young people coming in, older enthusiasts, but I see it two ways, and I see that and I think a lot of the blame. Yes, you can. There's lots of blame to go around. There's political movements that divide us, that drive this wedge between us. When really, truthfully, we're not all that different, as you were saying earlier. But I think part of it is the onus is on us as older enthusiasts, and I don't think we've often been as welcoming as we could. And I think there is this tendency to kind of dismiss young people and what they want to do. And you've seen this, like, it's like old guys making fun of kids and calling them hipsters, which I hate that term, because, what were mods and rockers? They were hipsters. I mean, it's all the same shit. It's never anything new. It's just different. It's like music. It's like these guys our age who only listen to Zeppelin. Well, there was a time when Zeppelin was new. And the kids these days, there's always great music. There's always great culture. There's always great art. And yet this monolith of the sort of the older Gen X and Boomer generation, I think has as their stamp on the culture is so heavy that it's kind of almost sunk it in some ways.
Well, that's exactly why I wrote the letter to Scott Galloway, because you and I aren't effective messengers. The fact is that what I was trying to do is come up with an answer to that problem by getting him to deliver the message. You and I will never be able to deliver this message because we're too siloed in our weird old motorcycle guy world.
Yeah.
We need somebody of national importance, somebody that people actually listen to deliver the message.
Wouldn't it be great? Here's something that's just came to me, and I think this would be great. Wouldn't it be great if the CEO of Harley Davidson came out and said, and they had this thing where, it was like a national program to get people to buy cheap Harleys off Facebook. And if you're under 25 or you're under 30, we're going to chip in an oil change or something like that. Just some radical program that seemed, at first you think, well, you'd want them to buy new bikes, but there's no way, no kid can afford a $25,000 bike. It's ridiculous. So as opposed to, putting these perfect photographs of new bikes and the sort of the fantasy little scenarios that they have in advertising, and actually get real and just say, listen, get an old bike, we'll help you get it going. Now, I know there has to be a business imperative, but I mean, the notion of the goodwill that would cause, could you imagine?
You think that the former head of Callaway Golf is going to be like, oh no, that's a good idea, Neil. Gee whiz, let's get that program started, man. No way.
But you're right. You're right. He'd laugh at me, but I don't think it's a laughable idea, is it? Now, maybe not in the exact form that I sketched out, because I did just make that up in the fly. But like something's got to give. Somebody's got to try something different.
That's why I'm doing that, man. That's why I wrote the letter.
Right.
I'm doing everything I know how to do.
eBay has reinvented vehicle buying. From click to curb, everything's covered. Ever try to buy a car online and end up in a parking lot with a stranger and some blind trust? Well, that era is over. Now, with secure purchase, eBay isn't just where you find your car, it's where you buy it, start to finish. Title, financing, registration, delivery. It's all built in. This is the modern way to buy your next ride on eBay. eBay, things people love. Secure purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary. Thank you for listening to The Lowdown Show.